You guys did a great job last week with taking the discussion into directions that were specifically related to your context and even extending the conversation a little bit by using the articles that you found or trying to dig a little bit deeper. But overall, across the different discussion groups, there were roughly 5 main areas that came up. Obviously, the quality discussion came up, and there was a fantastic job of looking at some actual comparisons that are out there. But this also ties to number 4 on screen, and that's with the advancements in tech. Conversations are still relevant, evaluations are still relevant, but advancements in tech are changing the quality discussion to some extent, not making it completely even. Perspective also came up in the conversation, and that's how certain photographers have been able to make a business out of uh, kind of not really fooling anyone into thinking that they're not really a photographer, but perhaps a different perspective. So, for example, there is a famous photographer by the name of Vivian who would take her images, would take her pictures when she was out walking the children that she was supervising as a nanny. So, to the average person on the street, she looked like she might have been photographing the children that she was with, not necessarily photographing the scenes around her. And that's kind of the same conversation that's popped up related to mobile versus digital photography, and that subjects don't necessarily perceive that they are being photographed when it's digital cameras all around them because we're used to digital cameras. We don't necessarily assume that someone's taking a picture of us. Once upon a time, I felt really self conscious about taking pictures of certain subjects or objects because I didn't want to seem intrusive, even though I was using my cell phone. Well, yesterday when I was traveling back from DC to Laramie and I was at Dallas Love Field, I had to make a run for Whataburger. And I had to post a picture because I love Whataburger. And it didn't feel so silly to take out my camera and take a picture of my food. For all anybody next to me knew, I was checking my text messages while my food was sitting in front of me. And I hadn't necessarily thought about it in that way until I was reading through your discussion posts. So the perspective conversation was very interesting. The convenience of having a digital camera or a mobile camera, mobile phone, also came up. We're more likely to have that mobile device in our pocket than we are to have a digital camera, unless you are a digital photographer or a photographer, not just a digital photographer, and you carry your camera around at all times. A number of friends who are never without their digital camera. It's an extension of their arm. But for most of the public, it's a matter of convenience and being in the right place at the right time and having the tool available. But that's what leads me to number 5, the artist. And the quote on screen is from Tim O'Neill, one of our classmates, because it was such a poignant quote. I wanted to share it with the entire class. The camera doesn't take the picture, the artist does. You have the tools available. You're learning the craft to some extent. Are you going to walk away from this class as a stellar photographer? Probably not. But you will walk away with a different understanding of digital imaging and perhaps have some better techniques and practices, more tools in your tool belt as you go forward and apply digital imaging in your own contexts. But there's also something else I wanted to share from one of the other discussions, and it's a great tip, I think, that can help us as we think about trying to take pictures like a pro. So it was Pablo Picasso who said, or is at least credited with saying, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. So there's a photographer by the name of Nicole Delicio who is a mobile photographer, and she uses the acronym SCARE. Simplify, closer, angle, rule of thirds, even lighting. So putting that into your tool belt can help you as you progress through this digital imaging journey. Just some things to think about from last week's discussion. So let's take a look at this week's topic. Use the on-screen navigation to access another section of this week's overview.